How's everybody doing today? We're back here at the Spawn HQ. This is Pete, getting ready to whip up just a fun little nymph. And this bug is going to hit those times where bugs might be emerging. You're not sure exactly what's coming up from the bottom, what's hitting the surface, but fish are actively feeding, and you just need to tease them a little bit and find out what they're eating. This bug should get it done. So in the vise, we've got a core 1120. Size 12. Let me count. And we've got a 7 64th inch bead in gold on there, and we just added 10 wraps of 0.015 non-lead weighted wire. After the cut, show you around those edges. Don't rip your thread and other materials apart right away. And slide into the back of the bead, and there we are. For the thread, I've got some dark brown ultra thread from UTC, and this is 70 denier. Let's get that started behind our weighted wire, and we can trim off the tag end of our thread. All right, so for now, let's just make a few angled wraps there and angled on the way back. Do that again. And now we'll go straight through each wrap and really cinch down all those loose wraps of thread. All right, like so. This fly is pretty simple. Not a lot of steps, not a lot of materials, but it's really buggy and it really emulates what the fish are seeing, especially right now. So we've got some V-rib, and this is the size Midge in the color amber. And V-rib is going to have a shape to it, and what we want to do is put the rounded side down against the hook shank. So let's get this started, and I want that end to be right behind my weighted wire so that we make as smooth of a transition as possible where that meets. And now we'll just tie back down, making sure we don't twist that V-rib as we go. I'm going to utilize most of this visible shank here too. Let's not waste any of it. All right, so now at this point, I'm going to spin my thread counterclockwise, and this will help to take some of the tension out and let it lay flatter, because now I want to go all the way back down and back up again and create a smooth and fully covered underbody here, because this thread is going to make up a portion of the actual body, and the V-rib will just be an actual rib, and you'll see the dark underbody showing through what looks like segmentation. Looks pretty good like so. All right, so now just some evenly spaced wraps, roughly 5 to get all the way to the behind the bead. So excuse me for 1 second while I turn this to get that first one started. Now I'll try to turn it and maintain my spacing so you guys can see what's going on here. So we're gonna have one extra wrap here. So far, so good, nothing crazy, super simple bug. You can see just that little bit of a V-rib and it really changes that thread body to a pretty buggy little bug. I'm gonna fold that back, trig off the tag end, and there we go. We've got our underbody done. So now I'm going to come back. So for the thorax, we're going to have a couple of different things implemented here. We're going to have what looks like the wings sprouting out with some white CDC. We're going to have Peacock curl wrapped in here for the thorax, and then we're going to have a final collar of a darker CDC. And again, this whole idea here is if it's going to be buggy and look like it's trying to escape from its shuck and begin to hatch, and yet it's struggling a little bit. So we're not going to have a really quick sinking fly. It's just going to slowly sink, but it's going to be a really nice look for the fish to go by and just, hey, we better eat that. Fish aren't going to be real picky, especially in the springtime. They're just looking to gain a little weight, getting active. The water's warming up. They're moving around again. All right, so from Nature's Spirit, I've got some CDC here. And this stuff doesn't all have to be even at the ends, but I am going to take a pretty good portion of this, and I'm just going to grab as many of the ends here in my off tying hand and then just simply pull down on the quill, and then I'll exchange this into my tying hand, and you see we've got just a nice little clump of CDC. And we're going to tie that in right on top here, and then make sure it is on top, not off to the sides, as much as possible. If we were trying, tying an actual stillborn, fully stillborn bug here, then we might let it drift over to one side just for that effect. But on this guy, let's just go right on top. Remove the tag ends of that CDC. There's one fiber there, it's just wanting to play. There we go. And finish tying down the butt ends. And now we can add in some Peacock. For the Peacock, and this is Nature's Spirit, this is their blue-winged olive. And where I'm pulling these fibers from very close to the eye, as you can see, only because I do like the little subtle nuances in this, and it has a little bit of contrast where some of the dye takes more and then some less. And so here's the key here. I do want to wrap this one wrap behind the CDC when I'm wrapping the Peacock. So for now, let's pull that CDC up. Our Peacock's facing the rear here. We're just going to take a loose thread wrap over and make sure it's behind that Peacock, or behind the CDC tuft here. That's going to look like our wing trying to hatch. All right, so now we can tag it, remove these tag ends of the Peacock. And before we wrap these hurls together and wrap them forward, we're going to switch now to some brown CDC, again from Nature's Spirit. And for this, I'm going to look for a feather that's got pretty even fibers on both sides. I don't mean even that they're all the same length at the ends. I just mean that both of the sides look roughly even. And then I'm going to tie, again, by the tip of the feather, and we will be tying it so that the top or the convex side is against our hook shank, so that when we wrap it, as it turns, it will leave all the good looking feathers exposed to the outer portion of your fly, and the less pretty side will be inside and facing the hook. And there we go. So everything's tied in and ready now. If you just slightly pull these Peacock curls up, and then very gently, take your time, be patient, but we're going to start twisting them and make a little bit of a single hurl out of all three of these hurls. And this will just add a little strength and make it a fuller appearance when you wrap these two. So anytime you're using Peacock for a collar or a thorax, remember that little step, and you'll get a more consistent look. So there's our one wrap behind the wing CDC, and now we can get our offhand in there, pull back, and continue wrapping. And now we'll just wrap to behind the hook eye, and you get your thread out of there. And you can see how it's just a little darker, a little contrast for that thorax. And that's all we really need. And you can tie this in so many different colors. Especially right now, some of the mayflies are starting to get going. tie it a little smaller. You could match a midge. This is a pretty good size though for a lot of the mayflies that we've been seeing around this area. And careful not to cut that CDC. There we go. So now we have the CDC to wrap for the collar left. So before we start, that thread is here, and now I'm going to take 1 thread wrap and 2 thread wraps in front of our CDC so that it won't get choked as we start wrapping here. I'm going to coax both sides here to get all those fibers facing the rear of the fly, and then just let it fill in right behind that bead. We'll come up for our second wrap. So at this point, we've got 2 wraps on here. I'm going to kind of get some of those fibers out of the way. You see the V that's created from the quill and the fibers that will be used on the fly, and that is just perfect for you to slick that thread through there and pull down gently. And now 1 more and a 3rd wrap. And to make sure that quill can't pop out and slip on you, get a couple wraps in front of it now, and then you may safely cut and remove the quill of that CDC. All that's left at this point is everybody's favorite thing in the world, which is the whip finish. And let's add a couple of them. So we want these bugs to be as strong as we possibly can make them. We do plan on having them chewed on, so why not make them strong from the get-go? There we go. Trim out that thread. And that's our little nymphy bug here. This bug doesn't have a specific name, so you guys did really well previously, given some names to a couple of flies that we put out there. So if you have a name for this fly, by all means, we really enjoy when you guys add comments at the bottom of these videos. We love reading them. We do adjust and take to heart any of the information and criticism you can give. So there you go. That is a fishy little nymph that is ready to get your spring fishing started. If you guys enjoyed this, please remember, just hit the like and subscribe buttons, and we will do our best to keep kicking out content that gets you more fun time on the water. Thanks, guys. We'll see you later.